Welcome on the second presentation of the second section of this course. We'll fly through three checkpoints. First, we will remember why cutting carbon from heating isn't just important, it's unavoidable. Second, we will lay out five strategic pillars that guide every credible decarbonization plan, from a farmhouse boiler to an entire capital city. Third, we will open the toolbox of which technologies suit giant district grids and which one makes sense for home at a time. Think of this as the heat sector's roadmap for fossil fuel path to zero carbon future. Heating is the hidden giant of energy statistics. Half of all final energy humans use each year simply keeps buildings comfortable or industrial processes hot, and that half is responsible for roughly 38% of energy-related CO2 emissions. At today's pace, the heating sector alone will exhaust almost a third of the remaining 1.5 degrees Celsius carbon budget before this decade ends. That's the climate argument. There's also a hard-nosed security angle. Europe's 2022 gas shock reminded every policymaker that dependency on imported molecules can empty a treasury overnight. Finally, consider public health. Replacing coal and oil burners with clean heat cuts urban particulate pollution, saving tens of thousands of lives a year. So whether your priority is Paris, geopolitics, or clean energy, the verdict is the same. Heat must be decarbonized. Every national roadmap from the IEA to your local municipality eventually sorts its actions into the same five baskets. Energy efficiency is the first step towards achieving our net zero energy goals. So, shrink demand with insulation, air tightness, and smart controls. The cheapest kilowatt hour is the one we never need. Until 2050, energy efficiency accounts for 40% of the needed emission reduction. Moving on to the next pillars. The second one, electrification. Run high efficiency devices, mostly heat pumps, on an increasingly renewable grid that swaps 90% efficient gas boilers for heat pumps that deliver 3 or 4 units of heat per unit of electricity. Third, renewable thermal supply. Harvest energy directly as heat. Sunlight on rooftops, geothermal brine under cities, or ambient heat lifted by large heat pumps. Fourth, low carbon fuels and carbon capture. Think biomethane, green hydrogen, and CCS bolted onto the furnaces we simply can't electrify yet. These options are pricey, so we save them for the hardest niches, especially high temperature industry. Fifth, thermal networks and storage. Modern district heating grids move large volumes of low temperature water, letting one clean heat plant decarbonize thousands of buildings overnight and soak up excess wind or solar in big hot water pits or other thermal storages. Everything you will hear from now on is a real world application of one or more of these five pillars. Let me give district heating just a quick spotlight because although only about 9% of global building heat travels through networks, those two networks can decarbonize whole neighborhoods in a single policy stroke. So the classic model, one big combined heat and power plant pushes 90 degrees water through insulated mains, buildings take what they need, and cooler water returns for reheating. The drawback is obvious. Hot pipes leak energy and the fossil fuel burned at the plant still pollutes. So by dropping supply temperature from 90 down to 50 or even 35 degrees, losses are cut in half. Copenhagen, for example, already supplies 70% of its district heating from waste to energy and biomass HP, topped up by city-scale heat pumps running on offshore wind. Vohens covers 20 the size of 7 football pitches. That's all we need today on big networks. The deep dive comes in our next presentation for district heating systems. Storage turns variable renewables into dependable heat. Most renewable heat sources are asynchronous with demand. So solar collectors peak at noon in July. Radiators scream for help at 6 a.m. in the morning in February. So without storage, a clean district grid still needs a fossil backup boiler for the coldest week of the year. With storage, that backup shrinks or disappears, and we run the whole system harder, cheaper, and cleaner. Now zoom to the single dwelling. A modern air source heat pump looks like an air conditioner outside and a cylinder inside. For every kilowatt hour of electricity it consumes, it delivers 2.5 to 4 kilowatt hours of heat. Even on a frosty night, because it is moving heat rather than making it. Ground source units cost more upfront because you need a borehole or a garden loop, but they reward you with steady year-round efficiency. 2024 was the crossover year in Europe. Heat pumps outsold gas boilers for the first time. 5 million units. Wider adoption turns the electricity grid itself into the furnace room, one that gets cleaner every year as wind and solar grow. Not every building can host a heat pump tomorrow. Maybe the electrical panel is maxed out or noise limits apply. Pure electric boilers and resistant heaters fill those gaps. They are simple, wire in, heat out, zero on-site emissions. Their climate impact rises or falls with the grid. When your utility is 40% coal, resistant heat is dirtier than gas. When the grid is 80% renewables, it's close to zero carbon. Pair that heater with a smart ceramic storage core or a phase change radiator, tell it to charge at 2 a.m. when wind is strongest, for example, and suddenly you have demand response that helps stabilize the grid instead of stressing it. The roof and the garden still matter. A 6 square meter solar thermal array can supply half of a Mediterranean household's hot water needs over a year. Rural homes beyond the gas grid lean on modern pellet boilers. 85% efficient, automated feed, and if the pellets are certified, almost net zero on the carbon ledger. Some suburbs are drilling communal shallow geothermal loops. Every house plugs a small heat pump into a shared 70-meter borehole ring, cutting installation cost in half. These options don't compete with heat pumps, they complement them, giving households several paths to the same clean heat destination. Now, certain factories and very cold climate district grids still need blast furnace temperatures or instant peak capacity. Here, we reach for low carbon molecules. Green hydrogen can flame at 2000 degrees without CO2. Pilots in Sweden and Austria are already melting iron ore with hydrogen direct reduction, proving the furnace chemistry works. Where pipelines already exist, upgrading them to carry biomethane keeps legacy industrial burners alive without fossil gas. And when none of that is cheap enough, carbon capture steps in. Oslo's Klemetsrud waste-to-energy plant will trap 400,000 tons of CO2 a year starting 2026. These solutions are the costliest in the toolbox, so we reserve them for the genuinely hard-to-electrify corners. Remember Pillar 1, efficiency? Wrap a 1960s house in modern insulation, add triple glazed windows and an airtight front door, and you can cut heating demand by 50 to 80%. Drop radiator temperatures to 55 degrees, or better yet, install underfloor loops and every low carbon supply option, that heat pump, that district loop suddenly performs better. Finally, top it with a learning thermostat that preheats when wind power is abundant, and this is off during evening peaks. In trials, simple algorithm control slices 15% of annual bills without the occupants lifting a finger. Technology only moves when policy clears the runway. A carbon price north of 100 euros a ton makes gas boilers the expensive option overnight. Many countries won't wait. The Netherlands bans fossil-only boilers in new homes next year. Germany follows for replacements, but by 2028. Governments are pairing sticks with carrots, grants that cover 30 to 50% of heat pump or insulation costs, repaid through utility savings. The EU Social Climate Fund alone puts 86 billion euros on the table through 2032 for low-income households. Upgrades with green bonds at interest rates below 2% because investors know a pipe in the ground is collateral that never walks away. So here's the staircase. By 2030, we need half of space heat emissions gone in developed countries. Achievable if heat pump sales keep doubling every 3 years and no new fossil-only boilers are allowed. By 2040, almost every district heating network should run below 60 degrees and at least a third of high temperature industrial heat must be electrified. By 2050, the destination is net zero. Low temperature heat, fully electrified, hydrogen or CCS mopping up the industrial extreme. And seasonal storage turning summer surplus into winter comfort.